What is up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, Florida, coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Today is a little bit different. We may not have power at 8 p.m., but coming at you live every Wednesday at 8 p.m., going over the market stats, the news you need to know about, if you think about buying, selling, or investing here in northeastern Florida. And we're also doing a Q&A. So if you have any questions about Hurricane Milton, if you have any questions about how this hurricane is going to impact our area, let me know in the comments below. I'm going to be covering a lot of stuff regarding Hurricane Milton today, just so you guys have an update from what I can put together, because there seems to be a whole bunch of information out there. Everyone's talking about this thing, and a lot of people are worried, and they rightfully so. It's definitely a big hurricane. Category 5 is something that we don't mess around with here. You know, like I make a joke a good bit, but once it's Category 3, people here really don't get too worried. But if it's anything over a Category 3, that's where people start to get a little freaked out, especially with the path and the trajectory. If you're going to be within like the eye of the storm, you're going to be having sustained winds of over 100 miles per hour, and that can be super scary. And in our area, the building code says that, hey, we're allowed to build for 120 mile per hour winds, and that's why everything is built to. And we know what this hurricane here, now this is of course out in the Gulf, it was Category 5. Category 4, which sustained winds I think above 140, 150 mile per hour, which is extremely scary, and it definitely makes you wonder. And I mean, I'm sure you guys have already seen this, but with Tampa is they got hit twice in a row. So Hurricane Helene came up through there pretty much, and then Hurricane Milton is pretty much on the trajectory south of Tampa, where it's going to look pretty bad for them. They're expecting storm surges of 10 to 15 feet. Just so you guys know what a storm surge is, we have obviously coastal areas with the ocean, intercoastal and everything, and that's essentially where there's so much water coming in and being whipped up that it could bring 10 to 15 feet of storm surges onto land. So if you are in any evacuation zone, especially if you're watching from Tampa, maybe you're considering moving to St. Augustine because you guys have just gotten a raw end of the deal these past couple weeks. It's not a bad idea to get out of that area, because I mean my house, my roof, my ceiling is 8 feet tall, right? So 10 feet, this house is underwater, right? Now I don't live right on the shore. I'm not in an evacuation zone as of right now, but I think I'll be just fine here. That's optimistic, right? This thing has changed so much over the past couple days, and I think for many Floridians, myself included, really under a Category 3, we're pretty comfortable. We're like, no, I'm staying. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to hunker down for the night. Get a case of beer, do whatever, have a glass of wine or a bottle of wine, and relax for the night, and just try to sleep through it most of the time. It seems that we've just been tracking this thing since Sunday, and it's been such a big a fear and anxiety of a lot of people here in the area. My brother-in-law he's a nerd when it comes down to watching the hurricane forecast, and he does pretty much his own forecasts and everything on his own, so I stay pretty up to date on what's going on. But just to give you guys a little anecdotal story, my grandma lives in the intercoastal on the island in Treasure Beach neighborhood, direct intercoastal front, so that's where we keep our boat, right? So me and my brother-in-law, we share a boat. I have a hard time getting out on it a lot of times just because it's just time. I'm always busy. So it was best that we share it. So whenever it has to come in and out of the water, that's both him and I do it. So Sunday night we go to bed. Monday morning we wake up, and it went from a Category 1 to like a Category 5, like overnight, which is really scary. And still obviously a couple days away from having landfall. But so a whole bunch of things have changed and could change still in the time that it could hit. But they are expecting it to come in as a Category 4 into like the Tampa area, then go down to a Category 3. And by the time that it gets on the east coast of Florida, they're expecting it to be a Category 1 hurricane. So not such a big worry for our area here. I'm going to cover a couple things here today, but just wanted to get on here, put this out, put as much information as I could for everyone out there if you are watching locally. I'm going to cover a couple of things, especially, and a lot of this is going to be the hurricane, but I do have a couple of news stories too that you need to know about. But a lot of it is going to be surrounding this hurricane. So if you're not worried about Hurricane Milton, this probably isn't the show for you, but we are also going to talk about the 2 tax referendums that are on the ballot here. And we're also going to look at another item for St. Johns County that I think is important. So we'll start off with those, and then we'll end with Milton, because you guys have probably, especially if you're worried about Milton, you know what's going on, and it'll probably change within the 10 minutes that we're here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here for the news. Okay, St. Johns County's official approved fiscal year 2025 budget. You'd be staggered to know how much that is. $1.75 billion the fiscal year for 2025 for St. Johns County. 330,000 residents. So it's a lot of money. It seems like a lot. I don't know. The key priorities include public safety, infrastructure, managing growth, open governance and transparency, financial stewardship. Interesting to say financial stewardship when they're spending $1.75 billion in a year, but inflation, right? So they have a whole bunch of projects that are on the docket that have been already started that are coming. So we have 26 million legislative appropriations secured by the BOCC for roadway infrastructure, public safety, and coastal resiliency. That money will be pissed away really quickly with the coastal resiliency. Then we also have 58 million in roadway and drainage construction projects, 3 new public safety stations, County Road 210, 46.4 million. Seems like so much just to widen this road. I don't know much about how much it costs per, let's say, mile to put a road in, but $50 million seems pretty extensive. And they got $2 million for conservation, land acquisition. A signal. This is insane. $2.8 million for Pine Island US 1 signalization. How in the world does that cost $2.8 million? That is insanity, guys. I don't pretend to know everything. I really don't. But if you can just think of materials for potentially 4 traffic lights, one at Pine Island, one on US 1 North, one on US 1 South, and then one on the the opposite side road of Pine Island. I'm not sure what road that is, but I know that's where like the trash drop is. $2.8 million for 4 lights in an intersection. I don't know, guys. That to me sounds like some bullshit. Like, how the heck does that cost? You're talking massive metal poles. You're talking lights and signals that connect into the grid. Maybe some road work that has to do with the sensors. I don't know. That seems ridiculous. But they got new light. So on to the next thing. I won't keep harping on it. But what do you guys think about that? 2.8 for traffic light setup off Pine Island and US 1. That seems like way too much money. I mean, I feel like that could be done for $250,000. All in. But maybe inform me if I'm ignorant, please. But parks and libraries, so a new central St. Johns County sportsplex with multiple purpose fields, a track, public gathering areas, and food trucks. A new central community park with a community center with a library hub, space for supervisor elections, pickleball and basketball courts. A new Northwest Community Park with a community center featuring a library hub, space for supervisor election. So they're having 2 of those. Softball fields, pickleball, sandball. So this actually is interesting. I think this might be the Central or Northwest Community Park could be one of those that could be why the county bought that $5.5 million piece of commercial property, many know as like the World Golf Hall of Fame area. They just bought that earlier this year, and that's kind of what I'm thinking is they want to change that into. So that could be one of those 2 projects there. A Northeast Community Park with a full-service library, community center, supervisor of elections, baseball. That'll probably go in Nocatee, I wouldn't doubt that. Field of Dreams expansion will include ADA parking, family restroom, and then Davis Park expansion. Then they're going to add 3 new fire stations, a sheriff substation set to be complete in 2025, 2027, 2028, a new regional fire training facility that's going to be $7.5 million, an expansion of the sheriff's headquarters at State Road 16 and I-95, going to be completed by the end of 2027. So, and that's already built, and that is a fantastic facility. I've actually talked to a couple police officers about that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's amazing out there." So, and funny enough, I know I've interviewed Art Hardwick. Maybe I'm a little bit biased, but he ran, and one of the things that his opponent was running on was that he was spending way too much of the county's money, and that he was burning through it. But from what I know, obviously they're doing this. This is probably outside of his budget, but he gave all the guys raises that work, or guys and girls raises that work for St. Johns County Sheriff's Department, which, if you want to get voted back in, that's a good way to do it. Give everyone a raise, but they needed it, right? Our area has just gotten more expensive. There's no changing that. We need to have that same type of energy for our school teachers, which is going into the next thing that we're going to talk about, guys. And you guys know, like, when it comes down to like paying like people like school teachers, firefighters, police officers, like I really believe like, hey, we need to make sure they can live here and live comfortably here. But what I'm going to cover here with St. Johns County and their proposed taxes, I think it's going to change. I don't know if this is the right way to go about it. Once again, I'm not a tax expert. I'm not an accountant. I do run my own business, so I have a good idea with some numbers and how things work. Not saying I'm an expert, but I'm not an idiot either. So if I'm wrong, please correct me. But if I'm not, or if you have a different idea, let me know in the comments below. So St. Johns County voters learned more about 2 ballot referendums proposed to fund schools. So they're going to decide on 2 of them. That's going to come up. They're going to have a whole bunch of town halls. Essentially, the first referendum has to do with continuing the half-cent sales tax for another 10 years, which voters approved back in 2015. It helps pay for capital outlay projects for things like growth, maintenance, technology, and safety. So that's already, we're paying, we have a state sales tax of 6%. We have a half-cent sales tax, which is exactly what they're talking about here. So we pay $6.50 on our sales tax for every purchase, and that all goes to the maintenance and the growth in new schools for St. Johns County, that half-cent sales tax. They're going to continue that. I don't see that changing. It's not much of a change to the people today and what's coming out of their pocket. Now, here's where I think most people are going to have a problem, and to me it seems like an obvious solution, but we'll let the people decide. The second is a 1 mil property tax increase for the next 4 years. If approved, it would pay for teacher and staff salaries and benefits. So they interviewed Linda Boyd, who works at St. Augustine High School, and she's been a teacher for 32 years here in the area and has lived in St. Johns County for 33 years. So when she bought her home, she bought it for, it's in here somewhere. So let's see. Where is it? She bought her home for $60,000, and she said she makes $15,000 less than when people start, like what people make today. So people starting off make around $55,000. So she made around $40,000 and was able to buy a $60,000 home pretty easily. Now that $60,000 home is probably around $400,000, just guessing. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less. So the salaries obviously haven't kept up if people are making around $55,000. That is one thing that is really interesting. We need to pay these guys better. But what the problem is when we're going to do a 1 mil property tax increase on voters. So for every deciding on, so here we go. It says 1 mil property tax increase voters are also deciding on will equal, that's a weird sentence, $1 for every 1,000 of assessed value on property. That means if your house is valued at $360,000, your property tax increase will equal $360. Now they say this is for 4 years. If you know anything about government and taxes, they don't go away. They're just going to extend it another 4 years, and then there'll be an increase in 10 years. So $360 for a lot of people in this area is a good bit of money on the annual basis to raise their costs. So to me, that doesn't seem like it makes a good sense. Now, personally, what I think is we should make like a special tax district within downtown St. Augustine so that anyone that is visiting and paying and buying things in downtown St. Augustine, there's a special sales tax regarded to that, so that we can really focus on the tax dollars from our tourism to go to our schools. And I think that would be the best way to do it. Maybe they already have that. Maybe they have some type of form of that. Maybe that's just a bad idea overall, because maybe people are like, oh, it's really expensive to go downtown now because of this half-cent, it's instead of 6.5, it's 7%. I don't want to go downtown anymore. Maybe that's a potential reaction. I don't think it's that big of an adjustment. And I think somewhere in this article it says that we have, most of our it's like 35% of our tax revenue comes from people, 38% of the half-cent sales tax revenue comes from people visiting the county. So pretty much 40% of that that initial referendum comes from people that are visiting on vacation. So why not just do that same thing again, but just make it specifically for downtown St. Augustine? I think that would make the difference. Once again, there's a whole bunch of that. I just don't know the exact visiting population that we could base that off of. But to raise it, $360 a year for residents, I mean, I think they could stomach it. I just don't know if that's the best way to go about it. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. We got an Instagram user here. Doesn't tell me on here. I had to go into Instagram to see who sent me the smiley face. Steve Olson, my man, sent me that smiley face. Fantastic. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll go on to the next news story here, guys. This is all, we're pretty much just going to cover Hurricane Milton at this point. If you have any questions, please let me know. So I'll share my screen. And if you didn't know, mandatory evacuation order issued for St. Johns County residents due to Hurricane Milton. So St. Johns County issued a mandatory evacuation for all residents and visitors in all of Zone A, Zone B, and Zone F, which is only the part south of State Road 206, effective this morning due to the imminent threat by Hurricane Milton. Now, these are all areas that are coastal for the most part. So like my grandma lives in Treasure Beach, has a house on the intercoastal. It's a double wide trailer. It's been there since 1998. It hasn't budged. During Hurricane Matthew, we did get water just under the skirt, but nothing had to be replaced. Everything was fine. I think they had to replace their AC because that hung out under the skirt. So obviously not the best thing in the world, but not the worst thing in the world either. So just out of precaution, we got my grandma staying here right now. She's got her 2 cats in my room. My dogs are in the other room. They're freaking out. I'm just outside of Zone A. I'm in Zone C. I'm over here just on the other side of downtown St. Augustine here in West Augustine. So a lot of times they say mandatory evacuation. Essentially what they're saying is like, hey, when the hurricane comes, if you're not evacuated, we're not coming to get you, right? So it's either leave now or you're going to have to deal with the storm on your own. And that's a really scary thought, especially with the potential of storm surge for this area. And I think they're saying that it's going to be somewhere between 1 to 6 feet of storm surge. So if you are on the coastal, surrounding areas of St. Augustine Beach, downtown St. Augustine, anything border the intercoastal, then, I got a phone call. New Yorker, I'll call him later. You probably want to evacuate. So, 6 feet of water, that's going to be as tall as me. If you're on the coast, that's a scary thing. Now, of course, from the coast to the elevation of your house, if you know the elevation of your house, you can do some quick math, see if you're okay. But if you're pretty close to the coast, you're gonna have a bad time. That is for sure. So if you are looking to evacuate, there are some storm shelters open. St. Johns County, honestly, from what I can tell, has done a really good job of managing this storm. Florida in general, I think. I saw DeSantis talking about how he mobilized, he or his team or whoever, it doesn't matter, mobilized the largest group of linemen from all across the country to come down here to be prepared. So they're here already. They're in Florida. They're hunkering down for the storm, but then right when the storm is over, they're going to be back up, setting up operations. He said they have linemen coming as far as California. I was on the road yesterday. I saw a convoy of linemen from Texas. So pretty cool. I think that's really cool. And of course, those guys are going to make some money. I got a buyer who's a lineman, just closed on his house this year. So hopefully he makes some money, stay safe out there. But hopefully make some money. And I'm glad that, at least there's a little bit of a silver lining that, hey, once stuff goes, this storm does get past, hopefully things will move on quickly and we'll get power back on. I'm expecting, which is why I'm doing my live right now, I'm expecting my area to lose power. We have a lot of old trees. We have a lot of old power lines. A strong breeze could bring down a lot of these power lines here. So we'll see. We shall see. But let's take a look at some of these storm shelters here just so you guys know. And the good thing is that they separated them, which I think is really interesting. So if you need special medical needs, you got to go to Freedom Crossing Academy. That's in the northwestern part of St. Johns County, 1365 Shetland Drive, St. Johns. If you have pets, pet friendly place, Southwoods Elementary, 4750 State Road 206, West Elkton, so that's in like the southwest part of the county. And then just for everyone else, go over to Pedro Menendez High School. That's also on 206. That's in the southeast part of the county, just on the east side of 95. Might be a little bit of a pain to get there on 95, but if you take US 1, or maybe if you can go over 207 somehow, get over to 206, you might be able to get over there pretty easily. So they have this here. They also have all the links on their website for you if you need to check it out. But yeah, if you haven't evacuated, if you are on the coast, I mean, I know it's really tough right now because you're pretty much stuck, and that's the shitty thing. Because if you're trying to go north at this point, there's, a lot of gas is gone. Gas stations are empty. A lot of the places, Wawa on 16, a couple gas stations here on Town, Circle K's I've seen with zeros, nothing going on, no gas. So if you don't have gas, you don't have a gas. Like I have a Toyota Tacoma, I probably get like 18 mile per hour or per gallon. Sorry, so I don't even know if I'd make it to the Georgia border if I wanted to. Side note, I do also have my boat. I took the boat out of the water yesterday. Beautiful day yesterday, and literally right when I took the trailer over to the boat ramp, my brother-in-law drove the boat from my grandma's house to the Butler Beach boat ramp, and beautiful day. Once we got the boat in the water, it started pouring. He was like, man, I was on the water. I started seeing white caps. I got a little scared. Couldn't see a thing. Couldn't see the boat ramp, but we got it out. So if anything, if I have flooding, I got my boat sitting out here. So it should be just fine. But yeah, I think overall, St. Augustine will have some flooding downtown. One really interesting thing I saw with the city of St. Augustine is if they're going to take a hurricane serious, and very stark contrast to Hurricane Helene, right? Where people freaked out a little bit for Hurricane Helene, not as much as they have as we have as Milton. But in downtown St. Augustine, I saw there's a bar manager downtown that runs Trade Winds. His name's Jason. I can't remember his last name. But he was talking about, when the city is going to take this thing seriously whenever they start removing the parking meters from downtown St. Augustine. So Hurricane Helene, the parking meters stayed. Hurricane Milton, they pulled all the parking meters. So that's where the city's like, you know what, let's take this thing a little bit more serious. If you see the parking meters start to go, it's probably going to be a bad storm, probably worth evacuating if you're in one of those flood zones. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It's supposed to hit tonight. I think around 7, 8 o'clock it's supposed to hit Tampa. And then probably by tomorrow morning, I think around 8 a.m., it's supposed to be over on the East Coast. And by the time it hits Tampa, it's supposed to be a Category 4, maybe a Category 3. By the time it hits the East Coast, probably going to be a Category 1. And then for our area, 1 to 6 feet in storm surges. We'll see how how bad that actually is. When I was at my grandma's dock this morning, it was low. It was 8:30. Low tide was at 7:30, and for my boat, it's a small boat. It's only 18-footer. You only need about 2 feet of water to draw to get out. So when it's low tide, I can't get out at all. I mean, there's maybe this much water, directly under my boat. But today, an hour after low tide, I could easily get in and out. I'll tell you that. I mean, probably had 4 or 5 feet of water already right there, and that was at low tide. So I'm imagining that they're going to get some flooding in that neighborhood for sure. Especially high tide's going to be in the next hour here, and the tide comes in really quickly. So hopefully my grandma's house will still be there. Hopefully the dock will still be there. I'll know where to put my boat. And I hope everyone else there stays safe as well. Looks like we got a couple comments. We got one comment. Jimmy Brownette, man, you must have subscriptions on for my stuff. I appreciate it. Coffee, tea, and laughter. Coffee, pizza, and laughter. That's what I'm about. It's pretty much my whole personality, Jimmy. I appreciate you being here, man. I hope you're staying safe during the storm. Guys, that's it. That's all I'm going to cover today. I just wanted to hop on here and, at least put a little something out, because I'm imagining I'll probably lose power tonight. We'll see. Maybe overnight. But I think all in all, we'll be safe here in St. Augustine. If you're in the evacuation zone, try and get out. Try to stay at a friend's house. just for a night or so. There's also those shelters I just covered too. If your house is sitting high and pretty, then don't worry about it. You might lose power. You'll be all right. But I'll stay in touch. Next week we'll know more about what happens and see how much damage we have to our area. But guys, I appreciate you every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Besides today, obviously. Hope you guys stay safe. I see Ian here. Ian commented. Ian, stay safe. Ian, you do as well. Everyone out there, be as safe as you can. Make good decisions. Don't be afraid to call for help. Stay safe, y'all. We are near Crescent, but not in a flood zone. Well, if you're in Crescent, I don't know. They said the whole area should evacuate. But yes, I'm not in a flood zone either. I'm not too worried about flooding. I think they're saying we're going to get about 6 to 12 inches of rain. But the storm surge is really what you need to be worried about, especially if you're on the island there. So high tides in an hour, I think also. So then we'll have low tide at 8:30, but then tomorrow morning could be a doozy depending on how the hurricane goes through the state. So either way, guys, appreciate you being here. Prayers to St. Augustine. I hope everyone is doing well. You guys have my number on here. Anyone locally, I got a 4x4 truck. Sits pretty high. I can get most places. You guys need anything, let me know. Be well, stay safe. Catch you guys next week.